So, March 2021, I started a new job at TTT, and exactly, well, a month after I started, um, my dialysis access failed. I don't know why, I don't know how. I think um, the last time I'd used it when I was in dialysis, my blood pressure dropped to very low. And that's one of the things that can lead to your dialysis access failing, because the access at the time was in this hand. And with the low blood pressure, it means that the pressure, my blood is circulating too slowly in the graft, so it probably clotted. So I went to dialysis the Friday, and when I got up the Saturday morning and realized that I wasn't feeling the access, and what will happen is that when you have a fistula or a graft, as I had, when you rest your hand on it, you can feel what they call a thrill or a bruit, B-R-U-I-T. So you're going like, brrr, brrr, brrr. That's literally what you feel. And when you listen to it, it sounds like, whoosh, 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 whoosh. So you can hear the blood rushing in it, right? So I remember I called the doctors at surgical outpatient clinic, because remember, this wasn't the first surgery I was having, and they told me to come in, and I went into A&E, and they really did a fantastic job of just rushing, trying to get me to do all the blood works and stuff to get me to go into surgery to try to save the graft. So that very Saturday, I think, or if it wasn't Saturday, it was a Sunday, I was in surgery trying to save the graft. It just so happened that it did not work. It did not, the graft was not able to be saved, which meant that here I was in hospital now, and I did not have a dialysis catheter, so therefore I needed to get it addressed. I was in the hospital for about, I think I went in there, I did dialysis the Friday, right? And I went there the Saturday, and they did the surgery to create another dialysis access the Thursday, right? So Friday to Thursday, 1 week. But here what happened. So after this thing failed, and the surgery to try to recover it didn't work, I went to theater thinking that I was going to get another access where I had the original catheter, which is on the right side here. They tried to put the catheter there, and it was unsuccessful. They were saying they were getting some blockage, which I think is probably scar tissue, because if you notice, this is where they continued to take out the original catheter that was working fine, right? You all remember that? That I had a catheter that worked for 5 years, this said one. And they told me, get something that is more, less prone to infection, more reliable, which was the graft. And the graft only lasted 2 years, and then here I was now. Get rid of a nice, good access that was working fantastic, and got a graft that only worked for 2 years. 5 years, 2 years, and now trying to put back a catheter there, and it did not work. So here I am in surgery. As a matter of fact, I was seeing my period. My period had just started, and if you know you're going to theater, you can't wear an underwear, so you literally just kind of have a pad, just kind of using your hand to hold it there, because you can't wear an underwear in theater. So they say, and I'm sure they have reasons behind those decisions, right? So here I was once again being faced with going for a dialysis access, expecting to get an access here. Mentally, that's what I was prepared for, to get an access here. And now here I was having to go through the same experience that I went through with my first ever dialysis session, of somebody coming to shave my vagina, to put in an access in my groin, because they bore you right in here, right in your femoral artery, right, just about there. They bore you, they put that tube in, it comes out under the skin, it comes out somewhere here, and when it comes out here, then you have those two, the split, right? And I remember being in that theater and just feeling so overwhelmed, so embarrassed, so vulnerable, so open, and I started crying like a mad person. When I tell you crying, I mean, if that surgery took 45 minutes, I cried for the entire 45 minutes. It, it, I don't think anybody can prepare you for something like that. You know, where you go and you expect, okay, they're going to treat with this. You know, normally they cover your breast and they cover this, and now here you are with your period, with a piece of pad, catch up in your crotch, and then somebody's going to come, move that pad, right? Come to clean here, to shave here, so that they can put in an access. Lord have mercy. When I tell you I cried, I cried, I cried, I cried. I remember just feeling so vulnerable. I remember just feeling so violated. And I know I need the access, right? But when you see you're not prepared for something like that, and there's no speech, there's no, well, Miss Lagore, I am so sorry. Well, the doctor did tell me, well, we didn't get through here, so we're gonna try down there, right? But even so, nothing can prepare you for that level of humiliation, you know. Absolutely nothing can prepare you for that level of humiliation. So people see us as dialysis patients and think that it is this life you just go and you just clean your blood and you just come back. And that's why I decided to do this channel, so that I can expose it to behind the scenes, right? And I remember when I tell you I cried, and even now, every time I talk about it, I get emotional. I cried, I cried, I cried. I couldn't stop crying. And they were asking me, you know, if I was okay, if I was feeling pain, and I could not answer. And I remember watching this movie at some point and seeing somebody taking a rubber band and snapping it. And somehow that just came to me when I was in that theater, and I started flicking myself to see if I could just control my emotions and just control what I was feeling. And for the entire time, I remember just doing that. And I couldn't stop. I mean, I literally could not stop, because it was the only thing that was kind of keeping me sane. And that is the time I told you, when I came out of theater and I went straight to dialysis in a wheelchair, because you know, you just put this thing on your leg, and one of the things they do is that they recommend that you don't walk up and down too much on it. How are you to have a life with a catheter on your leg that you can't walk up and down with? I don't know, right? But they don't recommend. They were asking me if I live in an upstairs apartment. Yes, I do. But the thing is, the minute I came out of that theater and I went to dialysis, that access wasn't working properly. That access was not working properly, and that access did not last even 1 year. I got that access in April 2021, and by the December 2021, I had to get a different access. Right? It just would not. Every time it was a problem. So till I even ended up getting deep vein thrombosis from getting that access placed, because it was not placed incorrectly. And I knew, because even when before I went to dialysis and it wasn't working properly, when I got home from the hospital, right? And if I had to sit down, I had to keep this leg extended. I couldn't even just sit with it like this. It would be so much pain in here. And that catheter gave me deep vein thrombosis. It just went, it sputtered. The dialysis nurses would try to make sure I can get some dialysis until it just stopped working, and I had to go into the hospital and do this thing that they call to methylize it, which is to put some powerful blood thinners in it to see if they can clear whatever, if there's any clot or anything in the access. And I did that once, and then I had to do it again. By this time, my leg was swollen, because the thing, if you get a dialysis access and it's not placed properly, you can end up with these very freaking real complications, you know. Because I mean, a deep vein thrombosis is nothing to play with. And here I was going into the hospital, not for the first time, to get help, and coming out feeling as if I just got fucked, even though I know that's not what happened, as in I don't think anybody was deliberately trying to hurt me. Well, I hope not, but I didn't believe so, right? But that I came out of that hospital and I just came out with more problems than when I even went in, because I went in with a catheter not working, and now I got a catheter that still wasn't working properly, and now I had DVT, right? And that catheter again, itch. It's almost like you develop an allergic reaction to it. So they have these catheters that they're using in the hospitals that you wonder if they even consider the patients, or if they just decide that it's whatever they can get. Because my first catheter was fine, and I think that's why I feel kind of, I would even say angry, because I had a catheter that worked fantastic, right? A catheter put in by Dr. King, a man who was in nephrology at the time named Dr. King, and another, and a Cuban doctor. I can't remember the Cuban doctor's name. I'm not seeing him again. But he used to be in nephrology at the time, and those people worked and gave me a catheter that was working fine. You saw me go through 4 years without an infection, and you took that catheter from me, telling me this would be better. And when you don't, that's why I'm telling you, get used to dialysis and know what you're about. Because if you don't know something like that, don't you think I regret ever removing that catheter? I do. Because I removed that catheter, and after that it's just been surgery after surgery after surgery. And very few of the only one that I could consider even slightly successful is this one that I have here now. And when I just got it, my entire breast turned black and filled with rashes, as if somehow again I'm allergic to it. Right? So that's why I said learn this thing, learn this thing, because if you don't, you can't stand up for yourself. And even though doctors make recommendations, I think sometimes you have to be able to say no if you know it's not what's best for you. Because the knowledge that I have now, if I had it then, I would have never gotten rid of that catheter. Never. Right? Because every time you get rid of a catheter and you go somewhere else searching for another site for a catheter, it's one site less you have to put a catheter. It's not as if catheters can go any and everywhere on your body, There are limited places that catheters can go. And I've exhausted almost all of mine. Just because I made I'm going to say I made one bad decision, because had I known enough, those doctors would have never been able to convince me to get a graft unless they stopped working. Then I would have gotten something temporary and then did the graft. But it didn't work out that way. So that to this day that affects me in terms of just emotionally, because I remember when I left theater the day, and the following day I was on the ward, and one of the nurses who was in theater came and looked for me and told me she felt, she was so moved because she was wondering if I was okay. So she just came to check in with me to see how I was, because she's never experienced anything like that. But I just remember being in there and I can't deal with the strangers and my body. I really don't know how to deal with that. And the most I've experienced that is in dialysis. You understand? I mean, I'm a woman, and I would consider myself a strong woman. But people in my vaginal space in this area is not something I do easily. And so to have those experiences kind of really took me out, because I just didn't know how to cope with it. So why aren't we educating people before they get on dialysis that these can be some of the realities? It's something we should do. It's something we need to do. Because people need to know. I'm not the first person to get a catheter in the groin. I see a lot of people with catheters in their groins. How prepared they were for it, I don't know. Maybe they dealt with it differently than I did. But I did not enjoy that experience at all. And I don't even know if I would do it over, and I'm telling you the God in heaven truth. I don't even know if I would do it over. And sometimes I'm wondering if that is the right thing to say, because there's a part of me that doesn't want to fucking live this life, People feel as if, it's so easy and Natalie is so strong, but there's a part of me that doesn't want to deal with some parts of it. I don't mind getting up and going to dialysis and fighting with the nurses to ensure that I don't catch an infection. But you see, that surgery part, I have a serious fear of surgeries. right? Because I never had a surgery a day in my life before I started dialysis. And then to go and without any kind of counseling before and to step into something like that can mess with your mental. And I think it definitely messed with mine, you know? It definitely messed with mine, and I don't know why the hell they're not sitting and they're not counseling dialysis patients before they get on dialysis. And not to counsel them to tell you, oh, you'll feel better once you start dialysis because it will clean the blood, and if you have any edema, any swelling in your legs or in your stomach, that you'll get rid of it and you'll be able to breathe better. That's all good. But talk to them about the realities of surgeries and the realities of failed catheters, right? Because as far as my understanding is, these doctors are required to do a certain amount of catheters before they can be considered somebody who can do a catheter. But most of them are fucking failing. A lot of these catheters fail. And who is taking responsibility for that? It's a patient who is suffering, you know. For every failed catheter and every site that can't be used again, it's a patient who has to suffer through that, you know. It's not the doctors. They just move on to the next catheter. They just move on to the next patient. And I think to date, that has been my most humiliating experience. When you're in this lifestyle, when you're a dialysis patient, it's almost like you can't have any shame. You have to just leave yourself bare to the elements and to people, whether you like them, you dislike them, whether you know them, whether you're comfortable with them, it's irrelevant. It's all irrelevant. And I wish it wasn't like that. Because there's no way, for me, if I had a choice, that day I would have gone straight back to the ward, waited until fucking suffer myself without dialysis, and waited until my period was over and I could shave myself before I go to that theater. Because I did not go to that theater with that mindset that anybody was going to be in my vaginal space again. And that's the second time it had happened to me. Anyway, that's the experience I wanted to share with you.